Former Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has been arrested abroad, triggering a wave of international reactions. Supporters decry it as political persecution, while critics welcome it as accountability. The arrest has reignited debates about sovereignty, diplomatic norms, and the role of international law in political leadership transitions across the world. The arrest effects are felt in Africa. Governments that have grappled with their own leadership crisis are watching closely. For Nigerians, the questions are immediate. What does this mean for norms around asylum, diplomatic protections, and the principle that political disagreements should be resolved through constitutional means, not force?
So to help us unpack this, we are joined by Thamsanqa Zhou, international journalist. Welcome to Breakfast Extra. We spoke during the week, didn't we, Tham? You and I, and we spoke about this issue. But yet again, here we are, but with more time, and I'd like to find out from you exactly what are we looking at here when a sovereign nation invades, kidnaps head of state of another country, takes them to their country, puts them in court, and while they lay siege to their oil. What are we looking at here? What official reasons are being given for Maduro's arrest, and how does it affect geopolitics?
Good morning, Azino. Good morning, Queen. Yeah, very interesting geopolitical topic, especially on a weekend. We need to be discussing these things more, especially after Waka Waka. People might probably think instead of looking for visas to go to Europe, they should come to Africa and see the beauty, the organic, the nice people. You know you are safe. You know you are getting everything as it is. I would think that with respect to Venezuela, legally, it's difficult to see anyone going against the U.S. We have seen that, especially at the Security Council level. There are certain things where people think, okay, this might be in breach of international law, or this might be, be falling foul to the international rules order that we have had since the Second World War. But countries will veto, those that have the veto power, the UN Security Council. So it then ceases to matter because they are using their military power. They're using the fact that they are a big country and there's nothing you can do about it. So it appears that that question is already water under the bridge. The administration in Caracas has a new leader in the form of former deputy to Maduro, who is Delcy Rodriguez. And when you hear her talk now with respect to the oil and the production and what needs to happen in the U.S., it appears that they are prepared to follow the American whip, the whip from Washington. So, I think we are where we are. And I know that in the next week or so, in the next few days, one of the opposition leaders, the Nobel Prize winner, Machado, will try to go to the White House and see President Trump to seek, permission to be involved somehow in what happens in Venezuela going forward. Yeah. It's difficult to know whether she will be accommodated, because it would appear that rather than, operating full colonial, with full colonial powers from Washington, they would prefer to work with people in the administration now, the army, the security services, but they just have to realign. So it's difficult to see where Machado will fit in. Mazina and Queen?
Yeah, so Mr. Zhou, I think now we see that, with this situation and, the debates and responses, a lot of different regions have, responded, either being an ally, either criticizing or just being a neutral state. What's your take on that and how the regions have found themselves in responding to this situation?
Except when you talk about China and Russia, it's difficult to see any other country that could publicly criticize, but being aware of what the consequences would be when you go against the mighty of the US. So the African Union, as we saw, put out a statement that is a generic, it's a template that is always sitting there in the cupboard waiting to be pulled out, and then it changes names depending on who you are talking about. The language is diplomatic. It is very careful language. So you would see that African countries have avoided, talking directly to that, except through the regional blocs and the AU. Russia and China have been quiet, but deliberately so, because there are always, negotiations behind the scenes. Because the Americans, before they did what they did in Venezuela, they would have wanted to know how the Russians would respond, how the Chinese would respond, and now they are going for Greenland, where those interests are also clashing. So, I mean, China has got Taiwan, Russia has got the issues with Ukraine, and you would think that they want the Americans to look away a little bit when they do that, and then they will say, well, you've got Venezuela going, exactly. Let's deal with what's happening within your region. You've got Cuba, you've got Colombia coming, you've got all these other elections, the second round of elections that will come up at some point.
It seems exactly what you're saying. It seems like the world is being divided across the superpowers, and nobody should, don't touch my bit. You've got yours. I'm also very curious as to what signal this sends to the rest of the world if America can just go in and attack or kidnap or whatever frame you want to frame it, take a leader, bring them into the state, and then say, next week we're going for Greenland. But we'll talk about these implications when we come back from this break. I want to ask you what the implications are for all other countries that America has had interactions with recently. But don't go anywhere. Let's take that short break. We'll be back. Welcome back. It's our final session here for Breakfast Extra, and we're talking with Mr. Thamsanqa Zhou, journalists, and we are talking about the Maduro instance here, as the United States of America and its president have taken the sovereign nation's president and flown him to New York in America, where he's standing trial for, many issues, one of which is narcotics. That was how the framing started. It started as narcotics. Eventually, we started seeing a different kind of dynamic here, where it's more about oil and who gets to keep the oil or sell it, and to whom, and at what denomination, or rather what currency. The dollar, petrol dollars, that seems to be the main thing right now. So it's come from narcotics to petrol dollars. Now, there are also, the United States is also eyeing Greenland for security reasons. This is not the first time that Trump had talked about Greenland, and all of a sudden we see him making moves. Now, he has also had certain mentions and framings when it comes to other nations. South Africa was white farmers' genocide, and in Nigeria it became Christian genocide. And you have to think, when Trump mentions your name as a country, you have to ask yourself, exactly what are we looking at here? What it seems like from the framing, or are there other interests? So for other nations who have been mentioned, sitting down and looking at Trump go after Venezuela and also suggest that he will take Greenland, what do you think they should be thinking right now? And I'm being specific. I'm asking, do you know who I'm asking for?
Right. I think let's simplify it. As journalists, part of our job is to inform in a partial way what are the facts. So when you go to the American Congress, you'll find that there are documents and policies and laws that they pass, they discuss. In most cases, people don't take notice until things start happening. So going into Venezuela, talking about Greenland with rare earth and all that, it's not a coincidence. It's not an overnight thing. These are things that are already on paper. So when you go to the Congress, you'll find some documents on what they call critical minerals and how they can pursue American interests with respect to critical minerals. So when they talk about Nigeria, you know what they want. So what they want is, Nigeria is it's got a lot of, Nigeria has oil, has minerals, it's got so much. So, you know, it is just a message to us, Rob, to say, let's have a conversation without dropping bombs, where we can, you know, look after each other's interest here. So countries like Nigeria will have to define what is it that Nigeria wants from America. Is it about the people going to the diaspora? Is it about, what is it exactly that's within the Nigerian interest that can be within the relationship with the U.S.? And Washington will be very clear what they want. And at the moment, given their power, not just Nigeria or any other country, if you don't agree with them, they can still come in anyway. So, you know, you are in a Venezuela situation. Either you play ball, you give them what they want, but get something in return and you have your country intact, or you say, no, you're not going to have anything, you're going to defend your country, and it's difficult to see how militarily you can defend against the American. But the other point that you mentioned, Mazino, it is about managing what we call propaganda in journalism, or political spinning, doctoring of information, massaging international relations and what countries do. So President Trump is a direct president. He tells you what he's doing. He tells you what he wants. He wants oil. He wants that. But other, you know, administrations have been able to say, oh, there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Oh, Gaddafi doesn't want democracy. Oh, we are going to, I mean, the people of Syria are rising up. The result is the same. The aims are the same. It is just different language of approaching. He tells you what he wants from Greenland, but other people would have coined it differently. The results, the aims, the objectives are still the same. It is all about, as a nation, what resources do you need for your own people? So countries like Nigeria can't leave other people in poverty. When there's oil, when there's minerals, when there's, you know, land for agriculture, when there's all this kind of stuff. So it's all about, how do you protect your own interests? Where do you get that? So when President Trump goes to Democratic Republic of Congo and other places, there are trillions and trillions of what you call critical mineral deposits. He wants to secure that for the U.S. He goes for oil in Venezuela. He wants to secure that for the U.S. He goes to Greenland. It's rare earth. You want to remove the dependence on China. You want to secure that for the U.S. so that you can compete. So it's very clear. His template is, you know, an open book. So the question for all these countries in Africa in particular, do you play ball? Do you negotiate for your thing? Or you surrender to the mighty of the bombs that might come your way. So that is the level of diplomatic engagement that needs to happen. President Trump doesn't like all these African leaders who go and say and kneel down, we'll give you everything. No, he wants people that are strong, that will show that when they go back to their own countries, they have the power to make the decisions they make, but they are also ready to defend their own countries and their own people, because that is his script. So if you are going to be a weak leader who goes to surrender everything, you are not likely to get much. You probably just laugh at you behind your back and take whatever you give him anyway. But if you go and you say, this is a big country, important country, and I want my people to have everything that I want, he's likely to respect you.
So, Thamsanqa, I like what you said in terms of, you know, he's going for the ball. This is what I want for my country. I'm governing this country, and this is what we need, and he's aiming for it. And, you know, like you said, other people would come up with different scenarios and drama, but the goal is still the same. Now, my question would be, do you think him having to arrest Maduro was the right approach, or you feel like there would have been a better way for him to do this?
Okay, so my understanding is there was work that was put in by the military intelligence. They were able to get access to Maduro's team, people. So it was cheaper, it was less risky, and in terms of costing American lives, it was an operation that they calculated and thought just being able to take Maduro out to New York on whatever charges or whatever procedure, given the intelligence that they had, given the access that they'd been able to get, was this the easiest thing that you could do. It saves American troops going in. It saves lives because you are now not fighting a war. It saves them money because they can simply say to that other administration, we already have all the information about you. We know where you live. Even if you change your house or your rooms, even if you change the house that you're going to be at that night, they have information on you anyway. Even if within the same house you change 2 hours, you're sleeping in a different room, they have information about you anyway, because they are giving the impression that they already are working with your bodyguards and all the people in the presidential guard. So you just have to conform. So for them, my understanding is they made a calculation to say just going there, walking into Maduro's bedroom, taking him to America was safer or would cost less lives. You don't need then to invade Venezuela. You don't need to fight like they did in Afghanistan or Iraq or, all these other countries where after spending billions and billions and many years, they still had to withdraw anyway. So this was the safest thing for them. It is difficult to see anybody else who would have done it anywhere else in the world. But this model might be a wake-up call to a lot of people, because any country they can go in as long as they have access to the people, the security services that are around the country's leaders.
Thamsanqa, we want to say thank you very much for giving us your time this morning and also discussing this topic here. We do hope that whatever the situation is, we get to see, a people liberated from whether it's a past dictator or maybe even an invasion. We'll continue to follow the story and hope that we can always come to you to have these conversations when the time comes. Thank you very much, Mr. Zhou. Thank you.
Thank you so much.